Today, we're talking with some Moscow locals who would say that this is bad, that the experiment of post-war suburban sprawl has created economic, cultural, and psychological depressions, and they are looking to show America something far better, right here in Moscow, Idaho. For our viewers, I'm here with Mark and Levi Wintz, and Mark, you moved your family here to Moscow how long ago?
Yeah, it was 25 years ago, so it was July of 2000 we came up, and it's been great.
Wow. And where'd you guys move from?
We moved from Ventura. This is just north of Los Angeles, and yeah, we had a beautiful place there. We loved it, and I thought we were gonna, it was kind of our ranch over by the sea. But someone gave us this Lost Tools of Learning that Doug Wilson had written. And it was based on a school that had started here, this Logos school. Yeah. And it was, we had 5 going on 6 children, and we thought, we need a better school situation. It's the kind of education I wish that we would have had. Yeah. And so just on a whim, we came up and looked at Moscow. And at the time, it was really, it has grown some, but it's a small little town and a college town. It was beautiful and everything, but I was like, what am I going to do for work here? So I was a developer and builder down in Southern California, and it wasn't sure that I was going to be able to support my family. So we stayed for a few more years in Ventura and just stayed in touch with what was happening up here until we just decided, hey, we're going to move and just let the chips fall where they may.
Okay. Yeah. Wow, that's amazing. 25 years ago. And in moving here, the primary motivating factor for you was the school, the opportunities for your kids, the education.
Right. I think it was the opportunities. It was both a carrot and stick because, in California, we kind of saw a cultural separation happening, that has happened exactly the way that we, thought it had. And it's just slowly, it's sort of like you're the frog in the kettle getting boiled, in this political and cultural stew. And we just wanted to get out of that. We didn't think it was going to be healthy for the kids. So, so it's really been a good move. Really everything that we kind of hoped for in a lot of ways has happened.
That's awesome. And you said you were a builder and developer in California. And one thing that we've talked to our viewers a little bit about is there are limited job opportunities or opportunities in Moscow compared to somewhere like Ventura, I'm sure. How is that? You watched Moscow from afar for a couple years and then you jumped in and made the move. How was it bringing that type of work or that type of business here?
Yeah, I'm an independent entrepreneur in that sense. So you make it happen wherever you are. And you in a small town, you just do whatever you can do. You can't just be like, well, we just build this, or I build office towers and you hope that they come. You have to respond to what is really available kind of market and do whatever you can. And so it might be, a remodel job here. It might be a house here. It's an office building over here as the opportunities arise. But the Lord was faithful.
And you remained doing work in other, you're doing work in California and in Washington.
Yeah, I kind of scrambled around for the first few years. I was finishing up work down in California and we do own some buildings down there, so there was some income coming from that. And,
Great.
And then, I got a great story. It was really fantastic. I was able to finish an architecture and degree at the U of I. We took a year. Our family went to France for a year.
Wow.
We took them out of Logos, and that was sort of like my master's degree. So we just traveled around looking at stuff. So I'm just very interested in architecture and urban design. Yeah. And so then we settled down here and have just really enjoyed it.
That's awesome. Yeah. That's very cool. And Levi, how old were you when you made the move to Moscow?
I was 3 years old when we moved up here. So for me, it was, I didn't really, of course, process it at the time. But I came in, I think the next year I went into preschool at Logos and went all the way through. And, really loved growing up here in Moscow. And Moscow is one of those places, I think for us, even when you moved the family here, I don't know if it was the intention for us to be in Moscow 25 years later. But it was sort of like, this is what we need to do right now for the family. And then I think all the way through Logos and even through college, I've had several moments where I've always been like, I am gonna leave. It's like there's always been the feeling I'm gonna leave, and Moscow always has this way of like pulling me back, and the Lord opens the door or whatever it is. And so, but I think the longer that I'm here, the more I look back on everything with fondness and just getting more love the community that exists here.
Yeah, that's really cool. And if we have a lot of viewers out there who are thinking about making the move, kind of like what we were talking about, considering Moscow in this research phase, if you had advice for anyone in that setting who's thinking about a move to Moscow, whether things that are great about Moscow, that's like, oh, these are some highlights, or things that might be deterrents or things that they should be thoughtfully considering if it could work for them and their family. Anything like that comes to mind?
Yeah, I think that what 25 years ago is, the word was don't come unless you have a job.
Sure.
So there wasn't as many opportunities, but I mean, the opportunities have probably doubled in the last 25 years, just because of a lot of entrepreneurs that are part of this community. So there is a lot of more opportunity, and so I think you just got to stick it out there. I don't know how to advise on that exactly, but I think it's worth a try. You're coming to something really good. You don't know what that is yet, so it's hard to measure what you're going to get out of it if you commit yourself to it. So you got to take a risk in life like that. So
absolutely. I think one of the things I've noticed recently with Moscow is that, now that we're sort of in the urban design space and thinking about our built environment and that sort of thing, Moscow really is a really well-planned city. And I think there are a lot of unique things about it. From the community standpoint, Moscow is always talked about, has a great community, has a great church community, has a great local community. And why is that? Why does Moscow have such a great community? And I think a lot of it has to do with, the location, geography, that sort of thing. The Moscow is isolated. You can drive 10 minutes end to end. The city, Pullman, it's 10 minutes away, feels really far. So people don't go over to Pullman. But because of that, everyone is within this 10-minute drive of each other. So you run into people all the time. That produces community, and that's something I'm sure we'll talk about with Woodbury. But also people don't have the opportunity. It's really easy. Like for my wife, we were just talking about this. She can drive 4 minutes to her friend's house with the kids and spend 45 minutes there, and then get home in 4 minutes to put the kids down for a nap if she wants to. Yeah. In a larger city, I have a sister that lives in Boise. It will take her 30 minutes to drive the kids somewhere, and then 30 minutes to drive back. So it's hard for her to do short little things. It's hard for her to get to the grocery store in a quick jog or get to a friend's house or whatever it is. Moscow, because of the size, is so easy to get around, and it provides such a fuller life because you can fit so much more into every single day. Yeah.
I just follow on that. I think that a lot of people have, they're coming from an urban environment and they're thinking North Idaho, so they're thinking, we're gonna have some acreage out in the Tules, which is cool, and that's available. We moved right into town. We lived kind of on a ranch in Southern California, strangely enough, but we moved into town, and being close to everything, people are used to being very suddenly you adjust to being close to everything really quickly here. So, for example, we had friends that lived up on Moscow Mountain a few years ago, and they're like, "Hey, nobody comes to visit us," And it's like, "Well, George, you're like 12 minutes out of town." So and that's just a long ways, measured in Moscow. So everything gets smaller. I do think that the idea that we're kind of away from a metropolis that we're connected to creates you're not anonymous in this community. for better or for worse. You
Right.
know? But I think that the churches participate in that in the sense that, you know, you can't kind of escape to other places, and but you get to know the guy at the hardware store, which in Los Angeles I never even thought of, you know. So it's a great community, and I would say you want to be in close, you know. There's the opportunity to be out on the edge, but being in the town itself is really unique.
Yeah.
Well, everyone wants their own private Idaho. Like that's the idea when you move here. And one of my memories from early on when we moved here was trips out to Deary, which Deary is about 35 minutes away. And you have the fuller story on this, but you were looking at acreage. When we first moved here, we moved into town with the intention that, hey, we're gonna be living out in Deary. We're looking at land out there. Huh. But I think there was that idea pretty quickly, the adjustment of you're like, that is so far away and everything is so close, and we'd be driving, you know, in and out of town all day. Like what quality of life is that?
Yeah, no, I think if you're a family that's coming here and your kids are gonna, and you know, if you're coming here for the community, the Logos community, the Christchurch community, and you're gonna have kids in Logos, if you're involved, there's so many activities, you know. So we had 6 kids that are in and out of, you know, classes and schools and stuff like that. So Valerie was shuttling all the time, and it was really great that we were just a few minutes away from the school. So
right.
If you want to take that, you know, consider that. You know, we have friends that are out in Potlatch or so forth like that, and it's a beautiful community, but to have to drive in and out all the time like that, and especially in the winter, is just a consideration.
Absolutely. And now, having been in Moscow, you guys have built a family business, Wintz Company, and you guys have an awesome mission statement. I have it here that I'd love to dive deeper into. I read that your mission statement is to partner with investors and landowners who want to create legacy projects that encourage human flourishing through thoughtful and purposeful development. Tell me more about that mission statement. Flesh that out for me. Where'd it come from? And
so a lot of this will start with what we're doing at Woodbury. I'd say we have to back up to understanding what's broken in the system first. I think there's been a realization, you know, in some part that our built environment is not serving us the way that it should. Yeah. And so there's a design movement that started back in the 1980s called New Urbanism. Yeah. And it was a reaction to the post-war suburban sprawl that had been happening for the last 20 to 30 years. And realizing sort of the isolation that it was creating for people, and realizing that that's a very auto-centric environment that was allowed to happen because of the car. People were able to spread out because the car and highways enabled it to happen. But we didn't really count the costs of what that sort of environment would create. And
I think in Southern California, for example, is, you know, an example of this kind of sprawl. I mean, it was like the poster child for it, you know. So, but they're kind of ugly environments, and you don't even get to know your neighbor. You drive up, you hit your garage door opener, you go in, you close it. You know, you might have pizza delivered. You don't look out the front door. You know, so, you know, as after a couple of years, you know, I've never talked to those people over there. You intentionally avoid them.
Right.
You know? So yeah, the New Urbanist movement was really taking all the best of what we used to do. Let's say shady, you know, tree-lined streets, front porches. Get the garages off the street, and maybe put them in the back with the trash cans or something, you know. Yeah. But so these kind of, you know, really beautiful little idyllic kind of neighborhoods, which Moscow's got some of, which the Fort Russell area I think is a good example of that. And it just sort of bring back a quality of life, you know, that had been missing. So.
And a lot of these neighborhoods that we'd point to are the neighborhoods that people love, but they're generally all of them built pre-1940.
Okay.
And there was just a change in how we did, you know, how cities planned and built out. You know, the civil engineers really took charge and, you know, went crazy with the streets and that sort of thing. So a new form developed post World War II. And so I think getting back to, hey, let's do all the things that we used to do so well. And so we're trying to bring some of that back. at Woodbury.
Yeah, that's really neat. And thinking about for the human individual, what serves them best in their environment, not just creating things by default, engineers, lining out streets and that type of thing, but actually what's good for the community, what's good for the person, what's good for the individual.
Right. Yeah, so one of the top of the list, we have walkability.
Yeah.
So we create a lot of paths and trails and little back alleys and ways through. So it's an interesting place to walk in, because when you come home from work, you want to take the kids or something, walk over to the park, or and it's just, you want to have a beautiful time doing it. So
and there's a freedom involved there too. I think that walkability is this, like, what does that mean? It's like we always point like 3rd Street, along the highway, that's walkable.
Sure.
You don't, but it's a hostile environment. You don't want to be there. There's no shade. The cars are moving fast. It's like desolate. It's not beautiful.
Yeah.
You're like,
Right. We have it here in our town.
Yeah.
We have the mall versus the downtown. I mean, that's the contrast. One's at a pedestrian scale, downtown, and the mall, and no one's caught out there walking unless you broke down,
Right.
or you're a transient or something.
Right.
It's just passing through. So.
And then the other element of walkability is, and this is probably the key design feature of Woodbury, is having everything within a 5-minute walk. And part of that is having all your daily needs within a 5-minute walk and creating what we're calling the town center. So this is getting mixed use retail into a residential setting. And so that you have the opportunity to walk down to a coffee shop. You have a third place to have a social outlet that you can go meet a friend at, whether that's a coffee shop or a pub. There's a corner market where you can get bread, eggs, milk, some of your daily grocery needs. And so it's giving people back the freedom to choose to walk instead of having to get in their car to drive to the grocery store, having to get in their car to drive their kids to school or church or whatever it may be. It's like, how can we bring some of this back to a more hyper-local level?
Yeah.
Yeah, you mentioned the third place. So, we have work, we have home. So what is that? Are those 2 of the 3 places, Levi?
Yeah, so there's, the live, work, play idea, but you want to have each of those. You have your home, you go to work every single day, and you want to have a third place that's usually more of like a social outlet or something like that. And so that's the coffee shop, the pub, maybe it's the church for some people. But a third place that's outside of your home that you can go meet people in a comfortable setting, and also an opportunity for you to meet neighbors and that sort of thing, meet other people that are outside of your normal sphere.
Yeah, and that's really neat to intentionally think about packaging all of those into a singular neighborhood or community, rather than kind of like what it would be in the 60s or 80s, which is I've got my work, I've got my home, and then I drive to the golf course, or I go out to, the pub downtown or whatever else. But I can walk there in 5 minutes. I can meet my friends there. I can have some fellowship and community.
Right.
Yeah, interesting.
And I think there's been pushback on this idea too. Certainly people that are like, maybe people that are moving to Idaho that have the idea of, I want my own private Idaho and that sort of thing. And I think, we'd be the first to say, it's like, hey, Woodbury's not for everyone. But I think some of our fundamental beliefs are, it's like, people are meant to be in community with each other. We are social creatures. We across human history, there's still people living, the cities are still the largest places. Everyone wants to be in the cities. We see people as an amenity, but because of the isolation that's been created, say in suburbia, and I've experienced this in talking with neighbors and people that have moved into our projects, that simply because they don't know their neighbor, they have a hostile view of them. Because they don't interact with them, they don't know them. And so a lot of, back to the mission statement, we say we want to encourage community or encourage human flourishing. A lot of it is, we understand that through the design of the places that we're building, we can create the opportunities for casual interactions. If you want to, you can sit on your front porch, and the front porch is a great spot to get to see your neighbor or something like that.
We do joke,
hi.
that if you don't like people, you might not like living in Woodbury, because it's really set up for people to mix and get to know people.
Yeah.
We only sell to fun people. Now that's not an official slogan yet, but we're playing around with it.
Oh, let's talk specifically about that. So you guys built, or Wintz Company's been in the works for 40 years, and it's gone through different iterations, and now it's for the most part focused in Moscow, but you could tell me what else is going on. And you've started this neighborhood, Woodbury, in Moscow, Idaho. Talk to me specifically about Woodbury. How long has it been in the works? What's the inspiration?
Yeah, you just to back up, I mean, Wintz Company did a number of small subdivisions in Southern California. So we were working between like Malibu and Santa Barbara in that area north of Los Angeles. And there wasn't, we were very determined because it takes that to build in that area. It's all kind of a not in my backyard type attitude. But we did several projects and we got notoriety from the Pacific Coast Builder Conference, which is the 14 Western states in the Pacific Rim. They have like kind of a judging process that they look at these and you submit your projects to them. And we won a few awards, so there's these Gold Nugget Awards. So I'm just saying we were really loved pursuing it and we're on the leading edge of it. And so when you move to Moscow, you're like, what? We don't really have that didn't think that we had that opportunity. But a few years ago, I was just kind of winding up on some other projects and I thought, what should we be doing? What can we be doing? And I was praying about it. And I felt like, look, you're not going to change industries at this point in your life. Sure. You're a builder, so just work with what you got where you're at. And so we're very fortunate because on the edge of town, we think this one quadrant out here is really the most beautiful. It looks towards Moscow Mountain. There's kind of broken, rolling wheat fields and tree stands there. There was one family that owned it, and they had not been sellers. I checked with them from time to time, and at this point, just a few years ago, they said, "Yeah, I think we're ready to peel off a little bit of it, to you, And we were really thankful that we had some kind of a reputation that we would do a good job. So, we got started with we have 82 acres that are kind of under contract with, and we're just doing the first 20 to 25 acres, and we're only maybe 20 houses into this project, which is going to be all built out, would be maybe 400 homes. So Woodbury, we went to a gentleman that was a designer, a new urbanist designer that did Seabrook, a project over here on the coast. And Lawrence, we worked together for a few weeks and came up with this plan, and we're really excited about the way it's designed. It has, like Levi's saying, a little town center, and it gets more dense as you get towards the center, and so bigger lots on the outside and smaller lots on the inside, where it gets down where there's some apartments above, the coffee shop right downtown. Yeah. So
two of the things that led to Woodbury happening. One, my dad's vision for a thing, just creating something out of thin air, and going back to this being the property that he had his eye on for a while. I found an old disc from when he got his architecture, or was taking architecture class at U of I back in 2003, and it was Trails property, 2003, and you'd done a master plan community on that property. What was it?
It was 18
years prior or something like that. But that was, so you'd been looking at that land for a while. So the vision to just create something that's never existed like this in Moscow before. And then also the reputation to, work that you'd done outside of Moscow, but also inside of Moscow, just the reputation of excellence, quality, beauty, and that really set the Trails family up to, I think, trust us to do a good job with their land. They've been in their family for a long time.
Yeah, that's really neat. The reputation that you built then empowered you to have the opportunity to steward that land and bring something new to Moscow.
We had on the intro, Chris read about, legacy projects and exactly what those are. This might be a good time to discuss that, because this project is something that the family was concerned about, how their land would be used over generations to come. And some of the best pieces of land around the country are owned by family members that, you know, they're well off, but they want to develop it, but they don't know, you know, how they can do that. Yeah. And our mission at Wintz Company is to expand and, you know, connect with some of these people and do, you know, they have 400 acres on Puget Sound on the water, you know, they just don't know what to do with it. Yeah. And bring in our group of consultants and our staff to bring, you know, a vision to pass. So.
And I think one of the things that you've said before is, you know, our world is famished for good design. I think that the built environment is not something that's thought about. You know, the average American doesn't think about our built environment on a daily basis, but they go to Europe for a couple of weeks and they walk around the streets of France and Rome and, oh, isn't this wonderful? And then they come back home, not asking themselves, it's like, why can't we build that here? And there's a lot of red tape in the way. But I think part of what we're trying to do is really look at how can we build a habitat for humanity? How do humans live and interact? And so we've got started in this Woodbury project, and I think for us, we're looking at the Woodbury project's a big project, and we really want to hold ourselves to a national standard. That's what we're looking at. We're traveling around the country, visiting the very best developments, gaining insight, studying this constantly. And we want to hold ourselves to that level, and we see that Woodbury is sort of our test site. We're constantly testing things there, trying new things, because our hope is we want to come up with a new model for neighborhood development that works, and that we can do and that others can copy. And so that's our mission right now, is that, you know, we have a lot of work to do, a long ways to go at Woodbury, but we're also sort of looking at this as our test site of, we know that there's a desire out there for this, and we'd like to be able to serve that in some way.
You know, it's something a little different than just a master plan community. I mean, there's a lot of master plan communities through the 60s, 70s have always been there. But I think that what makes this different, this kind of little town building, if you will, is the scale of it. It's squeezed down so it's at a pedestrian scale. You know, you can walk across it in 10 minutes or something like that, and you can walk to the downtown in 5 minutes. So you could be in a master plan community in Irvine, but you know, you got to get in a car, you know, to go anywhere. So this is really scaling, just to make a distinction here, this is scaling it down. There's a group that we're a part of too, this New Town Builders Association, which was, you know, there's maybe, let's say 40 of these kind of projects around the U.S. All of them are on the East Coast, and particularly in the Southeast. And there's only, you know, like Seabrook, which I really encourage you to go. You're gonna take your wife out there. It's out maybe a couple hours south of Seattle, on the water, and Woodbury is what we know of. Wow. So we're excited to be part of kind of a new movement.
Yeah. That's really neat. And that was one thing that I wanted to talk about, some of the inspiration that you guys got in the development of Woodbury. You mentioned other neighborhoods across the nation, and Seabrook specifically. What was that process like, going to those neighborhoods, gaining inspiration? You said you met with some people.
Right. The first project was Seaside, Florida. Okay. So there's some guys that were there, some architects that teamed up together with a landowner. It was a legacy project, excuse me, and it's on the panhandle of Florida. A number of other ones got started along just in that same corridor there. So we've been down there just the last few months. We're going back this next month because we have a conference over there too with other new town builders. So we met some people. We met a designer, and then we met together out at Seabrook over here on south of Seattle, and spent a couple days walking the neighborhood, talking about like why it's laid out the way it is, and laying down some of the first strokes on what became Woodbury. Yeah. So Lawrence Kamar. So he's a graduate of the new urbanist schools back east, and he's like the only guy that we know of that's out here that's a designer. But he's great. He's fantastic.
That's awesome.
We're in the early stages. You know, new urbanism is 40 years old, but I think it's really the movement is a striving towards how do we create, again, a environment for humans to, one word that we notice always comes back is flourish. How do we create an environment for human flourishing? And that's a word that we throw back and forth because it sounds a little vague and maybe a little utopian. But I think that is, we have a base understanding that our built environment affects us on a daily level. Yeah. The architecture is an art, and it can inspire you. You know, so good design can either affect you positively or negatively. Yeah. And one of the examples I always point to for this was there's a project back in St. Louis. There's a government housing project called the Pruitt Ego Project. Okay. At the time, it was held as a great example of modernist architecture. There was a tenement camp that was there before, and they built 17 11-story buildings there. It lasted, I don't know, just over a decade before they absolutely dynamited and demolished all of it. There had just been crime was rampant, vandalism, and I think the mayor said afterwards it would have been better to leave it as a tenement project than what was there, because it was just faceless. There was no personality to it, and you see this at government housing projects.
They had no identity. The people had no identity there.
Yeah.
You know, so and a family needs to have identity.
Yeah.
I think that's one of the things that was a failure there. It was just like every building was the same, and so they became enraged living there. That's strange.
So we understand that what we do affects how people live, and we take that idea very seriously. But we're at the early stages of gathering data and trying to figure out how do we do this? How do we create a better environment? And the best examples that we have is looking to the past and looking at what's lasted, what's stood the test of time so far.
And then there's our faith. You know, so we're trying to like consider how does this line up with our Christian faith? And I mean, some of the obvious things are, you know, I go to prepare a place for you. You know, he's the architect and builder of heaven, he says in Hebrews. You know, and that, you know, let it be on earth as it is in heaven. So I mean, if the streets are paved with gold, I mean, look, there's nothing wrong with good things. All right, if he's going to create a mansion for us, it's like that's not sinful. All right, like, that's the way it's going to be in heaven. So I think if you get absorbed in that, you know, of course, it's worldly and it can distract you, but good things, he's the author and creator of good things. So, you know, we're doing that here.
Yeah.
It's our mission.
Create in the image of our creator and create things that last. He created a beautiful world, so we're trying to create with beauty and do the best we can.
Yeah, that's awesome. I love that vision. Are there any components, when you guys looked at some of these neighborhoods, Seabrook or down in Florida, you mentioned some of them already, walkability, pedestrian friendly, garages on the back. What are some of the components that you're drawing into Woodbury? And are there any things that you're doing differently than maybe some of those neighborhoods that they did it one way, you've chosen intentionally to do it another?
Yeah, I think that we're going to have our own fingerprint on it for sure.
I think one obvious one that I can look at is that I'd like to say probably a majority of the new urbanist communities that exist are second home places. They tend to be a lot more expensive, and there's several reasons for that. The design layout doesn't necessarily need to be more expensive. In fact, in some cases, it's shown to be a cheaper style of development. But I think there's a couple things that, because it's such a desired market, there's a vacuum in the market that prices tend to usually grow and rise. Sure. Because the market responds and says, "Hey, I want to live somewhere like that." And so we have a unique position in Moscow where the Moscow is not a community that's flush with cash or anything like that. We're trying to create a permanent home community, so that's very different in how we design the homes, how we design the layout of the entire neighborhood, how we design our amenities and that sort of thing. And also we have to be very considerate about the pricing, because we're trying to serve Moscow right now. And so we're focused there, and that changes a bunch of different things and how we
So I
approach
think
it.
our per square foot price is competitive with anything else that's happening in town at this point. But I do think that the homes are going to increase in value at a faster rate than they do, because their value is protected there in a lot of ways. One of the features of it is that they're on smaller lots and they're squeezed down. So like when you're walking down the street, it's like you're entertained, and there's a lot more architecture. I'd say that it's happening there.
There's smaller lots, and I think that that's something that's worth addressing, because I think that it's different when you go out there. You realize, like, man, there's, especially with how expansive everything is out there. Like, why are they building the homes so close together? Well, there's a lot of intentionality in everything. I mean, every design detail out there we labor over and discuss and try to persuade each other. But for the land, how we look at the land is we really want to maximize land value. We talk with the city about street widths constantly, sidewalk widths, parkways, and we're trying to draw from examples across the country and say, hey, I think it would be best, I know your standard is like this, but we think it would be best to do it like this, and here is why. And we're constantly laboring over these things. And the size of the lots are smaller because we're giving so much back in public space. So part of the idea is, hey, we'd like to build smaller lots so they can create bigger parks. We have maybe a dozen parks. We have miles of trails out there. And so there's the trade-off there of some private space for a lot more public space.
And there are larger lots out on the edge. We're doing some customs that are on some bigger lots. But I think the overall idea is to squeeze it together and make it look fantastic.
I think another thing that's really unique is what we call it's the transect. So you were bringing this up earlier, but we're tying in at the edge of town to some quarter acre size lots. And so the perimeter of Woodbury is larger quarter acre to half acre lots. But as you move towards the town center, you move across what we call the transect. So you're moving into regular single family size lots to smaller cottage lots,
The way any city is laid out. You start out, there's 5 acre lots, there's farm areas, then 5 acre lots, then 1 acre lots, then quarter. And as you get closer to the center, it gets tighter.
Yeah.
So we're building some custom homes out there right now, and some really, really big, 5,000-6,000 square foot homes almost. But they're within eye shot of what we hope this next year is going to be a $399 product. And it's going to fit. And it's, I think that's going to be new for people. But I think once they see it, they're going to understand the quality is the same, but what we want to create is actually a very diverse neighborhood out there. We don't want it to be exclusive. I think that was the initial claims, like, man, this is going to be some gated community out there. Our quality and design level is really high, but we really want to create the widest variety of products. So there'll be everything from apartments to custom estate homes out there. And I think that's going to create such a better community because because diversity really is good for community. And so we're really excited about being able to show that, because I don't think there's very many examples of that anywhere.
Totally. Bringing different types of people together in one central community with things that bring them together, those central spaces, parks, and commercial zoning. And and I know, talking about the intentionality, the level of intentionality that you guys are doing out there, some of the fine, small details that I love are like your street signs are super tasteful and awesome. Okay. I think you guys stamp in the concrete the name of the house. Is that right? I just think that stuff is so cool.
Fun.
That came from like early on. We were just coming up with. We've always named my dad's named every house that he designs. The model name or whatever it is. But a lot of Woodbury, we're drawing from different European traditions, but I think a lot of it is English influence. And in England, every house has its own name, and it'll be a name that's passed down for generations. And so we started to think about that. One question we ask ourselves often is like, what is this going to be in 100 years? What is this going to look like? We really want to build something that lasts. And so being able to pass down something as simple as like a house name, that creates identity and purpose for the person living there. I'm in this house. And so, yeah, we sort of, through the first couple homes, we're like, this would be a cool idea. So we've started to do that.
So what we're doing right now, we're around Southwick Park, which is sort of this kind of semi-English feel to the name so forth. But it's a very eclectic architecture. We decided, let's just start off doing, neo-European eclectic stuff. And then we have a section that we're thinking is calling the French Quarter, which would just be really steep, little roofs and all tight and jogged in there. So we're looking forward to that, doing that little segment. And then we have Rosemary Park, which it might be just kind of like the quintessential cottages, that you see on the coast, more like Seabrook. So yeah, there's going to be some little themes. Overall, it's Americana, at the core. But we want to have some fun with theming some architecture out there and creating some identity for people.
That's awesome. Yeah. And talking about the architecture, you guys are, for the home designs, you're partnered with Harvey Points, is that right? Another family business.
Yeah, right.
Tell me about that partnership.
Well, Monique and Morgan, two of my daughters, teamed together, and they both got great skills. And so far they've done everything out there, I think. So it's not that we wouldn't have another architect out there, but they're able to remain creative enough that every house is looking different, and we're having fun. They're just really talented, and we're blessed to have them.
They're really phenomenal. I think it's fun as we expand and explore and get into new places, just to see how, I guess, our talent plays with other people's talent. And I've just really been impressed with my sisters and the talent level that they're playing at the highest level. In fact, Seabrook, Washington is now having them design homes for their newest phases out there. So they're getting connected in different ways. And yeah, it's great to see them. Great to work with them.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I know one thing that you guys mentioned is this type of community or neighborhood is new to Moscow. I imagine there was red tape. There's lots of conversations with the city and getting things going. How is, from your guys' perspective, Woodbury progressing? Is it progressing as you had hoped and wanted to, or are there differences in the future?
That's good, Chris. It always takes longer than you think.
Sure.
But and then we have a winter here where in one of the setbacks is you have clay, clay soil, and when it gets wet, it's really a mess to work in. So
there's 5 to 6 months out of the year where you can't dig.
You're taking a big risk. But the city has been great to work with. We're asking them for everything that's non-conforming in a lot of ways. Sure. And they're bending as much as they feel that they can. And in some areas we just that'll just be a private street because we want to have it like this. We're really pleased with the city. We have to go through a planning commission hearings and then a city council hearings, and we were in there the other night getting some approvals for an area, and I realized there's 30 or 40 people that are in this kind of in this setting for this evening, the third time we've met together on the same subject, and they're volunteers. They're all volunteering their time. In a sense, there's some people that are, work for the city on the clock and the city managers there and so forth, but the city council, the planning commission, they're giving of their time. They gave us unanimous approvals. It was fantastic. But we have a town that cares and gives itself. So we're fortunate.
And we really see it as a private-public partnership. We're working towards the same ends of we want to see our city built out in a beautiful way and doing it the best we can. And I think the city trusts us in one regard that, that's what we mean when we say that, But also the city of Moscow has a unique zoning code called plan unit development that not all city codes allow. And the plan unit development really allows you to pick and choose from across the board the zoning codes that you're like, I want to take this from the R2 zoning code. I want these types of setbacks. I want these street widths, and of course it's all negotiable. But we created this Frankenstein project out of, the city's code book and said, hey, can we do this? And there was negotiations, and we went through things, and they allowed us to do that. So that was the initial process. And then we just got, as you're saying, a PUD amendment. After the first couple of years, it took us 3 years to actually even start building out there. And through the first year of building, I think we realized we've been learning and growing, and the market's changed. And so we wanted to make some adjustments to the plan. And so we went back over the last year and made adjustments to our plan. And I think now we're looking to make those adjustments to the future phases. And we're figuring out what Woodbury is going to be and what's going to work.
Yeah.
Yeah. Something probably most people don't recognize, but the fire department drives these codes.
Interesting.
And you have to be able to get their truck up to every house. So you can't put a house back in like by something you might see in Europe. You just can't do that here.
Yeah.
So we need to create like a 20-foot wide cleared pathway to within 150 feet of every house, and just doing that creatively is what our job is, so that you don't really know that it's there.
That's super interesting. And I know one of the fun things that I've talked to you guys about recently that you're doing is maybe adding some ADUs on different buildings over the garage. Tell me about that.
Every lot out at Woodbury, we got approved to have an ADU on it. So a lot of the smaller lots, the cottage and single family lots, I think are allowed to have up to a 700 square foot ADU that's attached above the garage, something like that. Which a 3-car garage, if you put an ADU above it, it's 600 square feet, something like that. So plenty of space. On some of the larger estate lots, we got approved to up to a 1,200 square foot ADU that's detached. So you could just build a second house in your backyard. But we love that idea of the multi-generational living, and we'd love to see more ADUs out there. We want these would be above the garages in often cases, facing onto the alleyways. And we want the alleyways to be animated also. We don't want them to be dead. They're walkways that people will be using as part of the trail system, we imagine. And so the more ADUs we get out there, again, this is more diversity. These are college students that can be living out there, and they could be working at the coffee shop that's right downtown.
Or cleaning someone's house right there in the neighborhood, or doing other things. I mean, it's in England they had like the alley with what they called the mews, which was on the back one, like little places where the house help lived. And on the front big street, it's like this, great facade. But in the back alley, it was more affordable.
Yeah.
So we want to insert as many as we can. For people buying the house, they can finance that into their home purchase on a regular, Fannie Mae kind of loan, that's subsidized loan, if you will. Yeah. And have this rental project, rental income that's there. So
counted towards their income.
Yeah.
So we want to see these built. We built one as a spec because we were like, hopefully people see this and want to start asking for it. And people have started asking for it. I mean, and it's everything. It's we want a spot for our kids to be able to move into once they're out of the house. We want a spot for our college student to stay. We want a spot for our in-laws or whatever it is, or just a guest room. So I'm really excited about the ADUs, and I hope that we get a lot of them out there.
Yeah, that's really neat. What are some of the other features of Woodbury? We've talked, Levi, a little bit about that you're excited for. You talked about parks and walkways. I hear a pickleball court is in the works potentially. What's
Well, we want really an indoor pickle.
Okay.
Because, I mean, and it has a place where the kids can ride around on their trikes or something like that in the wintertime. Probably the biggest feature or biggest amenity, beyond the little parks and walkways and things like that is in pickleball courts is what we're calling the town center, which we're going to start on this probably in about another year, or we should be there. Our streets are working our way out there. And it's just a place to go on that, there's going to be, we're hoping that there's going to be local, people that, we know a cheese, some people that sell cheese, internationally. They're grinding coffee, they're brewing beer, they're a small restaurant, or just a handful of these kind of uses out there, so you can go down there and just kind of walk down there, and they don't have to drive. I'm looking forward to it. And we'd also like to put a little inn down there. It's sort of maybe 12 to 15 rooms, has a little, pub on the side, place where you can get some food. And it's just, so I think just having that there and being able to walk down there in the evening or in the morning would be fantastic.
I think it's just the overall environment. There's a lot of little amenities that we're planning on putting in, like there will be fire pits, and there's a community pavilion that we've built. But creating this holistic town, we're talking with someone that might want to build a little school or a local church or an urban farm or whatever it might be. Getting people engaged in a community fashion out there and having all these mixed uses is going to create a really entertaining environment. We have a kind of a naturalized park area that will have a trail running through it and that sort of thing. Less than a half a mile away is the new Logos campus and Mountain View Park and the aquatic center and an indoor basketball court at the Herc. And so it's actually very close to a ton of amenities. And I think that side of town is really going to be building out in a big way over the next 20 years. I think Woodbury is going to be a big part of that. But.
Yeah, we just one of the amenities that we created just this last summer, I don't know if you recognize, but we did that improvement on Mountain View.
Yes.
Along with the city. It was a 50-50 deal, but it connected Woodbury down to the pools and the
junior high and
all that area. Right. So, and of course, Logos is built out there this summer, just a walking distance away.
And I'm a runner too, so I grew up running all the roads around here. That whole side of town, there's gravel roads and you're into the country there. So there's great running from Woodbury, and then you're right at the base of Moscow Mountain, which is like, I think people don't understand, but there's 60 plus miles of world-class mountain bike trails, really incredible topography. I think that the more I talk with people, I realize that Mosconians heavily underuse Moscow Mountain for how wonderful it is.
Have you noticed how many more bikes you're seeing on the back of cars?
Yes.
I mean, I think there are people coming into town that are like doing the mountain and
Totally.
Yeah.
So we'd love to sponsor a mountain bike race. That's one of our pipe dreams.
That's awesome.
Because you could just pick up from Woodbury and do your warm up to the base of Moscow Mountain, and then you're off to the races. So.
Oh man, that would be great. And if someone is loving what you guys are doing, interested in the project, interested in the neighborhood, what would be the best way for them to get more information or to reach out to you, hear more about what you guys have going on or potential options for them?
Yeah, I mean, you can go to woodburymoscow.com or you can contact, you, Chris.
All right.
Story. I mean, so it's we're listed and we're there and we're selling.
Awesome. Yeah, and we have our brokerage that we're working with, and we have I think our website. We've gone through a bunch of changes, but our website is up to date now.
Nice.
And so people can go there and we have all of our homes on there. And
the prices are current.
Yeah, and we're trying to, we really want the website to be a source of truth for everyone, but there's certainly a lot of information, as we talked about, and a lot of passion behind what we're doing, and so hopefully a lot of that is portrayed there on the website, and people can just scroll to their own interests.
Yeah, awesome. Well, very cool. This has been an amazing interview. I appreciate you guys sitting down with me and sharing about your passion for the project, what you guys have going on.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, I really look forward to continuing to see what you guys do over the years. If you enjoyed this video, we have tons more content on our YouTube channel, other interviews, and everything of what it's like to eat, live, sleep, play in Moscow, Idaho. Go check it out. Start with either of these two videos next.